had a dream February 16th, and I'd like to share it with you guys. Now, when I had woke up, a lot of the details were. Well, I woke up, and then I was so tired because I barely got any sleep that I fell right back asleep, so I didn't get to write it down right away. And then when I woke up later, some of the details were kind of fuzzy, so I was trying to remember as best as I could when I wrote all this. But anyways, if I remember right, this is what happened. So I want to say my friend Haley was there with a group of us in this dream, and I think she told us this prophetic word, telling us what would maybe soon happen immediately before the rapture. And if you know her, if you're familiar with her, God gives her like prophetic words in real life, you know. But anyways, in the dream, we were in some sort of small, simple, stone-built castle-like room in a grassy area. It might have been on a hill. Um, it was technically it was a building, but it was like just like a one single hollow room with four walls and like open like hollow castle-like windows on each side. Hopefully that makes sense. Um, what comes to mind is like, like castles, like, and in okay, maybe I should wait to get to that part, but I was gonna mention it reminds me a little bit of the architecture, the buildings in the Chosen show. So like back in Jesus' day, it was specifically the scene in the Chosen where John the Baptist gets beheaded.
Thank you.
Spoilers for that, and the Bible, if you didn't know about that. But so I'm not sure how relevant that is, but anyways, um, I remember a decent sized group of people. We were all gathering together into this little building, and I want to say it was dark out. Now this is one of the details that I wish I could remember better. Um, it either was dark out or like it got dark out during the dream, but um, and this may not mean anything. It might be random, but I want to say that the location that this castle room thing was near our local Dollar General. Again, seems really random. Might not have even been in the dream. It's hard. But I'm trying here. um, but it was maybe like a minute away from that or something. But I think there may have been some intense stuff. So we were inside the building. I think the world was getting a little crazy. Some intense stuff going outside. Um, or somehow we knew it there was about to be. Again, Haley was telling us, I think she was saying about things. She specifically told us a list of things that were about to happen in order. And I'm not sure if this building was just randomly there or if it was meant to be some sort of protection, some sort of bunker or something. It wasn't underground though. And it had those, open windows, so like, things could just come in through that, so. But they were probably smaller windows. But again, I don't know how many details are really that necessary or mean anything, but. Um, so Haley said, I believe, that she's like, oh, I think God might be saying this is about to happen. She may have said something like, if this was really from God, all these things will happen tonight in this order. And I want to say it might have been the first thing she said was that fireballs were about to start falling out of the sky. That may have been the first thing. Um, and unless it was still not dark out when we went in there, um, if it was still light out, she might have said the first thing that's gonna happen would be that it would become very dark out like instantly. So that might have actually been the first thing, which did end up, if it wasn't already dark, it did become dark instantly. Again, I hate that the details are so fuzzy, Um, but I just want to say this just in case it means anything. Um, so like the most significant thing in the whole dream, and this was the easiest part to recall when trying to remember the details from the dream. What she said next, or one of the things to happen before we'd be raptured that night in the dream, was that we would see a lot of sheep. And so the order of details were something like this. We were, again, gathered together inside that small room, and she told us what was about to happen, assuming that that was God telling her that, in that she may have said that it was going to get instantly dark first, and then we would see crazy things like fireballs after that, and then we would see a flock of sheep. Maybe it might have been like a fairly large flock of sheep, um, and then the sheep would follow us, or was it that we would have God would say to follow the sheep? Um, I think maybe she told us that God would bring us the sheep, so we would know it's time to leave, time to be raptured, but also that the sheep would come to us, and then soon they would start moving toward another area where we were to follow them out of the building, and then they would take us to where God wanted us to go. Yeah, so it was either that or they just followed us there, but I think it was the first one. Sorry, I know that's a lot, but I have a lot to say in a short time. So that was more or less what she said. She thought was likely about to happen, and we barely waited any time at all after she said that. And then suddenly, if it wasn't already dark, then it quickly faded into darkness, like almost instantly, basically. And I don't think it was super bright out before either. Maybe if again, if it wasn't already dark out, it was like probably like a sunsetty orange sky out, and then nearly instantly dark. Hope you're keeping staying with me, but yeah. Anyways, that happened, and I really wish I could replay every detail in my head. Um, because it was super exciting and interesting how this played out in the dream. Um, it would be awesome if in heaven you could actually like replay the dreams you had here on Earth. I don't know. Um, but yeah, so we still didn't know for sure what was going on, what was about to happen, or if what Haley said would come true, or if it would even happen that night, or if the rapture was like that imminent. Um, but we were all in there in that room, that group of people. And I was in there, and I believe Haley was in there, and I think the next thing that happened was we started hearing loud explosions and craziness in the far distance. We looked out the windows and saw like tons and tons of fireballs in the sky falling together, if I'm remembering that right. Um, so I think when we saw that, we were thinking this might actually like really be tonight. Like this is really looking like it. This might really be like any moment, the rapture. And I'm not sure, but I think the fireballs may have been like taking their time going down to the ground, at like an angle, like all together, like a huge rows of them, um, you know, and like they weren't hitting the ground just yet. We could just see them slowly falling in the sky. So then we heard something. We rushed to the window to see what was coming, and oh my goodness, it was the most beautiful sight. Like this huge group of sheep, like all playfully, all like running toward us, already nearly to us, and it was just so exciting. We were all like hyped up, like yes, like this is happening. We were all so full of joy, and it reminded me of the cartoony sheep from the David movie, like how playful they were.
Coming in!
There were white sheep for sure, and I want to say, I hope I'm remembering right. You know, again, I feel like a broken record keeps saying that, but like, I think there might have also been some black sheep in there too, um, which, yeah, that is like, you know, biblical, you know, about the black sheep. And I know Ben Fuller has a song called Black Sheep. It's very beautiful, again, about the Bible. And then all the sheep, they all ran inside to us, and they were like running around us all joyfully, and you know, as if God had instructed them to do that, which, you know, of course, that's why, you know, they're doing that, I'm sure. um, but you know, it was, you know, it's a lot like how, you know, he can do that sort of thing, like Noah's Ark, telling God told all the animals to like go in rows to, you know, two by two into the ark. You know, he can have animals do that if he wants. You know what I mean? Um, so, you know, that's just what that reminded me of. But like, so a moment or two, um, the sheep. After a moment or two, the sheep started heading out towards another location. Of course, we knew we were meant to follow them, so we hurried along with them. And I can't remember where they took us, but I want to say it was like this vastly larger building. It might have been like this empty, yellowy building, like at least like yellow lighting, I think, possibly on the very top of the mountain. And again, it's very random, but that building may have reminded me a little bit of Dollar General, which, you know, if you know Dollar General, that's a very yellow store, you know, yellow lighting and whatnot. You know, again, that detail might just, I don't know, I might be like adding to my dream accidentally, so hopefully not. But you know, and you know, yellow of course can be representing God and God's light, you know, representing heaven. So pretty significant. And that's pretty much all I can remember. But again, it was just so satisfying to see those sheep show up. It was one of the coolest moments I've probably ever had in a dream. Um, yeah. So, you know, and if I really did dream the fireballs here, then this would, I guess, I think be my first fireball dream in a long time. Like, probably over a year at least. So I want to say it was November 2023, unless it was 2024 of November. It might have been then that I had my first fireball dream. No, it was probably 2023. Wow, that's weird. You know, over a couple years ago. Trying to remember that, but yeah, I had like a fireball dream, and then like one or two more not too long after that. You know, like one of them I know was just like within a month or maybe a month later. But I haven't had any fireball dreams that I can remember for a good while now. So like, to see that in this dream is pretty wild. And at this Valentine's church party I went to the other day, they had these, you know, candy hearts there, and they had, of course, little messages written on them. And on the back of them, I noticed, oh, they have fireballs. I'm like, what? You know, that's kind of crazy. Of all the things, why are there fireballs on here? And of course, it turns out that they were like hot tamale branded candy hearts. So like they were spicy, and you know, I picked up on that when I started eating them. But yeah, it's just interesting, you know. I'm like, is God talking to me even through these candy hearts, like fireballs? You know, even getting that message through that of all things. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe some things aren't really coincidences. I don't know. Some people say there's no such thing as coincidences, and I don't, I'm kind of like in the middle with that. I think a lot of things are definitely not coincidences, but maybe some things are. Like two cars going across at the same time on the same road, that's not a coincidence. That's just something that's gonna happen. You know, some things just happen, right? Does that make sense? I don't know. But, you know, and again, like most of these prophetic or seemingly prophetic dreams, dreams that are or seem to be from God, we didn't get raptured in the dream itself, unless, of course, get the sheep taking us to this building, which maybe I'm just realizing now, maybe the sheep represent angels taking us to heaven. I didn't think about them maybe representing angels. Maybe. Oh, that's exciting. But if you know the building at the end represents being raptured to heaven, if that's heaven there, then technically I guess we did get raptured in the dream. But like we didn't get raptured in the dream in the sense of like I didn't literally see everyone like we're all like floating in the air, which of course is how it will happen. You know, literal scripture says all together, caught up in the air, meeting the Lord in the air. I don't know if that building specifically looking like a castle had more deeper any kind of significance. It probably did. I don't know, but again, it reminded me specifically what I was thinking of. Maybe even during dreaming it was the scene where John the Baptist gets beheaded in The Chosen. You know, right before he does, he looks out the window and he sees a sheep. Right? Isn't that how that goes? And you know, we look out the window and we see this huge group of sheep, and so like that's pretty awesome. And one detail that I forgot to write down, I guess, but that I thought about later, I'm like, I wonder if that's very significant for me to be thinking, for God wanting me probably to think about that scene of him specifically getting beheaded, because in the dream we we escape the tribulation where people will get beheaded. And in the show, he sees the sheep like the moment before he gets beheaded. So we get raptured the moment before tribulation, before people, you know, the event where people start getting beheaded for their faith. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe this is ridiculous, but I had to share this dream with you guys. And I can't 100% say that I know for sure that this was from God, but I'm thinking it is. It makes way too much sense, the symbolism and all the connections, and how when you think about it, you know, it makes sense for, I think the sheep represent angels taking us to heaven to be raptured. I don't know. I don't know. Something worth sharing at the very least. Jesus is coming soon. Very exciting. I hope this blessed someone. God bless you. Peace. Maranatha.